Hello. This is Jonathan, and you're listening to the Johnny Talks podcast, the place where we help you achieve your financial goals. Hola, amigos. Hope you're having a great day wherever you are. And if you're a new listener to the show, special warm welcome to you. I really appreciate you tuning into the show. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back. I appreciate it even more. In today's episode, we will speak to my friend Mathias from the Financial Independence Europe podcast. I'm a regular listener to his podcast, and if you live in Europe, I highly recommend it to you as well. He was recently featured in a documentary on financial independence on a French-German channel, Arte, for those who know. And in this documentary, he opens the doors to his house and to his journey to financial independence. I hope this documentary will inspire people to see that it is possible to adjust their finances or their lifestyle to live a life closer to what they value. We will reflect back on the documentary, and Mathias will share his views and his way to reach financial independence in Europe. We will go into detail on his daily expenses, even his rent and mobility budget, and of course, his investment strategy. Spoiler alert, it is not the usual, between brackets, buy ETFs and chill method. This episode is for you if you're curious about reaching financial independence in Europe and you want to hear a real story of how a German family of four is working on it. So without further ado, let's hear the interview. Hello, Mathias. How are you doing today?
Fine. I had a coffee at a friend's place. Kids were playing together. So nice Sunday afternoon.
Oh, perfect. And very relaxing. And look, Mathias, you are the host of the Financial Independence Europe podcast. Podcast I've been listening several times and regularly. So excited to have you on.
Yeah, also excited to be here. First time that I'm also in another podcast, actually. So I'm just recording my own podcast, but I totally forgot also to speak to other hosts.
Yeah, exactly. So very good to have you on. And yeah, today I wanted to talk to you because you were recently featured in a documentary on television, on national television in, I don't know if it's a French or German channel, but I
think both.
It's both, huh? Yeah, because they do all their documentaries in both languages. I mean, for the people in Europe, it's a well-known channel. It's called Arte. So they're famous for their documentaries. And I will link it. It's available on YouTube, but only in French and German for the moment. But yeah, maybe who knows? In the future, it will be also possible to watch with us English subtitles. Anyway, this documentary is about actually financial independence and retiring early in Europe, which is quite cool because, it's starting to get more and more, how can I say? Yeah, out there. It's getting more and more, widespread. I mean, it's getting attention and awareness, so that's quite cool. And you were featured in it. So, you open up the doors of your house, your family life. I mean, we see your wife, we see you agree on some items as well, not quarrel, but argue on some decisions. So it's quite interesting. And okay, it's very brave of you. So first of all, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. It was just, I usually don't like to go into TV, but I thought Arte, nobody's watching Arte. It's too much culture, too much intellectual people watching it. But they then uploaded it also to YouTube, so it got more traction and also has been posted on Reddit and Facebook groups. So then there's also a wider audience who watched it, and also people who have not been familiar with the concept of financial independence. And actually, it was also the intention to spread the word a bit. I mean, I think also there was a dip in financial independence. Was not that interesting. I have the feeling that 2017, 18, many people talked about it, and then there was a little bit of silence. And now it's also in the media again. I think it's good to show people that there are alternative forms of life. And I also liked it that we have this kind of path that we pursuing for a couple of years now, that there's also kind of a film about it for my personal records. And I also like the journalist that has been doing it. So I just went for it, and we set some borders, what we don't want to have for example, we don't want to have pictures of our kids.
Yes.
names, and I don't want to close up with a camera on my bank accounts. But besides that, I think it was quite interesting also how people can save money and design their lives outside of the typical path.
Yes, indeed. And then, you are featured in the documentary. And there's as well another lady who's in her 50s and she retired. So there's a few stories, but I think it's mainly your story in that documentary. So it's quite interesting. So I recommend everyone to watch it. And Mathias, okay, so we talk about financial independence, and maybe some listeners, they're curious about financial independence. So can you give in your own words what is financial independence and why you're pursuing it?
I never cared much about these definitions and about what you can read in the books that have been published in the US. So actually, I haven't consumed not most of them, but some of them, or also not this Money Mustache blog. I haven't read this. But in the end, what I would like to do, and what I think many people can feel deep in their hearts and guts, is that this deep, that you like to work. I think working is also living. So if you don't work anymore, you also don't live, kind of. Depends on definition, but I would say that. And also, but the dependence is a problem. If, for example, everybody who has been fired can also think of, oh, it's not that cool that I don't have income anymore. So that there's a connection between income and your job. So, and I would like to unbundle this. And that's why I think financial independence for me is a way to take care of my basic needs and be able to work on what I want, and also to make more decisions on my own, to have more ownership about the work I'm doing. Yeah, but I also don't mind having a day job and so on, or being dependent. But I would like to be able to go. And what I don't like is to retire early. That's why in my podcast also called FI Europe and not FIRE, Fire Europe, because I don't want to retire. I think that's just retiring is kind of, it sounds like you degenerate and that you don't have to go to the gym anymore. You don't have to think about things anymore. So I don't like the word, actually.
Okay, very good. So it's about, being able to be financially secure and still...
or just, I think main motivation is taking care of your basic needs, and also, for example, health. For example, if you have a problem with your health, you broken leg, or you cannot see anymore, and you need some time off, or you need this, that you can just pay for it, and you can pay for a good doctor. You can take a break. Also taking care of your family or parents, if they just need you being there, or they need special care. You have also a lot of freedom if you have money. You can just switch to another country. You can live on a sailing boat. Also, I don't want to do that, but it's just creating options.
Exactly. Yeah, options indeed. Yeah, very good. And I'm the same as you. I mean, I'm also looking at, I'm on my way to financial independence, or at least I'm working on it, but not necessarily retire. I mean, I will always do something. I cannot stand still, basically. So that's more like that. Yeah.
It's interesting that you say you work on your path to financial independence. You said work. Is it kind of work, but it's different than day job work. It's another work, and it's also unpaid work.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so I'm just reading a book about work. You maybe can. That's pretty interesting. It's called the history of work. Maybe you can also link it for the people that you just think about where work comes from, and that you just understand kind of better what work is and what it can provide as a meaning. Unfortunately, I have just read the first 40 pages or so. So we have to do another interview about that.
Sure. We'll do that. So, okay, Mathias, and financial independence, how do we get there? I mean, what can we do to achieve this financial independence? How do we get there? What type of investments or money choices do we need to make?
I think you probably you have covered this already in the podcast, and I'm too. But there are many different ways to do that. In the end, it's pretty simple. You reduce your expense, you increase your income, and then you increase your savings rate, and by that also the possibility to invest. And also you should probably have a good return of that investment. And I think then these are kind of 4 variables, or 4 or 5, I don't know. And you need to tweak them in a way that it fits your life situation and your personal preference and values. For example, somebody who is young in their 20s, they are pretty good in reducing expense. They don't have a family, they don't need a car, so they can really save. But if you have kids and you want to live in a bigger city because you just like city life, then you might have to spend more. But that also means then that you need to earn more or to invest better to make the overall picture work in the end. And I used to not spend so much, but recently also we increased our cost. And I would consider myself more a fat fire. As you know, there's a lean fire and fat fire. I think when I was a student, I also really was just in the discounter, bought really cheap things. But I also spent sometimes money on the. So my what I like to say often is I like to save on the basic things and spend on the unnecessary things. And my wife is totally disagreeing about this. She wants to spend more on the basic things, so like bread, for example. Yeah.
Yes, because of course the formula is what you said is correct. It has been covered on the podcast, and I don't want to bore the people, but it's more that of course I'm looking at you, how you do it, because as well in your we can talk first maybe about, for example, the expenses. I think it's quite interesting in your case because I saw the documentary, and then we can talk about investing.
Okay.
So about saving money, or about at least managing your money, your daily money, because, for example, you say, well, I don't go for the hard discount, but then in the documentary, I think it is said that you go to 3 different supermarkets, and then we see you looking at Spätzles, and then it's about isn't that too expensive? Is it the right price? So you're still looking at the price items. I mean,
I used to look more at the price tags, but I just developed the system because we have this flat since 7 years, and these supermarkets, or it's 1 drugstore and 2 supermarkets. Actually, it's 3 supermarkets, and they are all next to each other. So walking from one to another is like 20 seconds.
Okay.
And there's 1 supermarket that has all. It's a kind of mainstream supermarket. They have cheap products. They have high price products, but they have kind of all. And I kind of feel tricked by this supermarket. Because there is also the expensive products. If you look at the ingredients, it's not really the quality. So I'm trying to buy, and I also had with my wife. I can also tell the backstory later on. But we also talked a lot about these supermarkets. And when I was in a couple of years ago, we walked every day into this organic supermarket and spent without really calculating how much it costs. And if you go every day to the organic supermarket, you can buy here sausage, and you can buy there some nice cheese, although you just maybe wanted to buy a banana. And that was a problem. So we defined that why not that I'm just going 1 time a week on Saturday to buy groceries, and she can maybe just buy 1 time for some fresh products during the week, like vegetables and so on. And so the idea is that I go first to the discounter, buy everything that is okayish quality there. I also buy the organic products in the discounter if they look good. Yeah, and then I go to the drugstore because they have also quality products, organic, but they have a wider selection, and everything else that I don't get in the drugstore and in the discounter, I buy in the organic supermarket. So that's why there's not so many items left that I need to buy there. And this is kind of 40 minutes round trip, 45. I don't know. Sometimes I also take the kids with me, and then it takes obviously longer, and we buy more. That's the idea. And the Spätzle. So in the documentary, I was calling my wife and telling, "Do you really need the Spätzle for €2.70 or €2.50?" But it was kind of more a joke, because in north of Germany, I'm coming from Berlin. She's from south of Germany, and in south of Germany they eat this Spätzle. And people from North Germany, they don't like the habits from the people of South Germany. So I thought, why do we need to eat Spätzle? Can we eat something proper food? And also, I haven't bought it. Actually, she wanted me to buy the Spätzle from the discounter and not this one. And usually, I also don't call her too often. Sometimes I call her, but in the end, she can have everything if it's important for her. And I think it was more kind of a joke for the team.
Yeah.
But my jokes, they are not, if people don't know me, I think people don't think it's a joke.
Yeah, because, it's funny because it's about, the documentary is about financial independence. And then we see you in the in the documentary about calling your wife in the supermarket. So we think from the outside and not from the German culture, you think, okay, so the guy is saving money, trying to invest, but then he's looking at every cent and every cent, every euro to make sure his money is used for the best. So that's how it looks like from the outside.
Yes. But I think the overall picture is important. The overall picture is that you start with the discounter. The overall picture is that you can, in all these 3 supermarkets, you can use these payback bonus points. I usually don't collect too many points because it's taking too much headspace, but there it's easy. And that you have a budget. Then for supermarket, we have a debit card, so everybody, and we can then at the end in the bank account, we can just see, we filter for these 3 supermarkets, and then we see how much we spend. So if we overspend with our family budget, the first thing would be to look into this account and see how much we spent on this, on the supermarkets. But if we not overspend in the months, then I also don't look into it. Yeah. Because,
No, very good. So you have your system. And then talking about expenses, so you don't have a car, or do you?
I don't have a car. I think also, we buy mobility. So we still spend on mobility, but my parents, they don't live in Cologne, and her parents also don't live in Cologne. And we have also friends that are everywhere. So we often use a train, because I don't want to sit and drive all the time. And it's also cheap. It's not really cheaper anymore, I think, because when the kids also have to pay for the train. But anyway, we just rent a car. There's in Germany, it's called a website called Billiger Mietwagen. It's in English it means cheap rental cars.com, and it's cheap, and it's really simple to book. You have your profile there. And I think it's much cheaper to get this car for every 2 months when you really need to drive for a long distance. We use car sharing. Today we went to friends outside of Cologne with it's a bicycle with where you can put in your kids with an electric bicycle, because it was a longer distance. That's kind of €20. I think you have to pay for that bike about more than €4,000 if you buy it. And in my everyday, I'm in a home office. I don't need my bicycle. And if I have to travel to a customer or something, then the company pays for it. So I don't need to spend money on it. So it's rare that we travel by car or train.
Yeah.
That's why we have a mobility budget, and it's expensive if we travel. But I don't want to have this car. I think it's more expensive. You have to pay for the fuel, for the insurance. You have to pay for the car. I think it's still more expensive if I would have a car. It's also taking too much headspace. Yeah,
no, very good. So you do it based on your needs and on a case by case. Okay, very good. And then for the rent, I think in the documentary they say you pay €900 on your rent, correct?
Yes. And that's because...
is that cheap or is that expensive for the area?
For the area, it's pretty cheap. And also in general, it's pretty affordable. Because, I think we are in the flat since 7-8 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And the flat wasn't perfect, but the area was perfect. So we have the supermarkets, we have school, we have kindergarten, we have a gym. It's not far away from river and parks. So it's a pretty good spot with nice people, not too crowded also. And the flat had some things you have to overlook. There's no balcony. It has no floor. It had also not a nice ground, so we bit after bit, so we upgraded the flat. So we had also then later on warm water in the kitchen. We had a new floor. We had and the balcony we don't need because we have a lot of parks, and we can also there's a small garden in the back of the house that's not from us, but we can also sit sometimes there. So it's okay, and it's a gift. Paying 900 euros if you would like to move from this 3-room flat to a 4-room flat, so that we have another home office, then we would have to pay like 800 to 1,000 euros more. Mm-hmm. This is really, you can look at the websites where you can rent flats. So it's really expensive, and we don't want to move out of the city because then we have even more travel costs. We have different type of people. We have less opportunity to network or to go to a bar. So we kind of city people, and that's our choice. That's why we live in a smaller flat, but we don't have to drive everywhere. We can just go out of the flat, and we can get a hipster latte macchiato. So what you need. So all the basics you need probably.
Yeah, no, but it's very good. So you have your budget. I mean, your grocery budget, your mobility, your expenses under control. Based on your preferences. So that's very good.
And then you have money left over.
Exactly. So what do you do with that money?
If you don't pay a lot of money for the flat, and you don't for mobility, and also for fashion, and maybe there are some more, then you can spend the money on, we spend it on vacation a lot. So especially if you have kids, then sometimes having a bit more comfort is pretty good, because then you really have vacation, because if you don't have to take care of the kids all the time, if you can have a car, if you have a nice hotel and so on, then it's really vacation. If you don't have to cook, for example, also. So we have a mix of budget vacations and also always one more expensive vacation, and that's where the money goes. And the money also, before we can spend it on vacation, I obviously also take it out of the accounts and invest it. Yeah, that's basically what we do. And I also have, for example, during Corona times, I had every day or every second day also a coffee to go, because I could not.
Come on.
I could not spend my money on anything. So it made me really happy to bring my daughter to the kindergarten, get a coffee and walk a bit on the river, listening to a podcast, and then starting to work. It's my kind of luxury to have a coffee. I spend too much on coffee, unfortunately.
Okay, very cool. And then talking about investing, because one thing that is interesting is that in the documentary, they mentioned that you're looking at, index funds and other opportunities. So you were also looking at crypto. So, because usually, the financial independence community, it's index fund and chill. And here I hear a mix of investments. So do you have a clear strategy, or are you still discovering? What's going on, Mathias?
I have clear is always a bit fuzzy. So I don't think that anybody in the world is totally 100% clear, except maybe these system traders, but their systems also don't work on every condition. Anyway, so I have most of my money in stocks, because that's where I started. I have also experiments, but they are smaller money where I just try to learn. That's more than kind of learning money. But I started with my parents. They gave me their stocks after the new market, 2000, the year 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got the stocks. They were not worth so much at that time. And then I discovered them, rediscovered them during my studies, and I researched a lot about stocks. Maybe not that professional at that time, just reading the typical stock porn. Also, ETFs haven't been that famous in Germany at that time. So, and that's why I tried stocks. And then I thought, it might be good to be a bit more wealthy faster. Mm-hmm. And I looked into crowd investing. Since 2011, there were some crowd investing platforms, and in the beginning also there were good deals. But then I think the deals haven't been that good anymore in general, but there also have been one or two good deals. So I had started putting too much into crowd investing, but I also had some exits, so it was not that bad. Also 5-digit exits, not 6 or 7 or 8-digit exits, because my invest was too small. But it was interesting to research these startups, and then I went back to stocks, built out my stock portfolio, and also had some peer-to-peer lending. Mm-hmm. The peer-to-peer lending, I reduced the peer-to-peer lending then during Corona, because there was money, and stock market, it was really cheap, all the stocks. So I kind of pulled my money, I pulled it out of peer-to-peer, because there also have been some scandals, and I wanted to wait for some more regulation. Yeah, and I put it into stocks, and it was until now a good decision, profit-wise. I have multiple stock portfolios with different strategies, and I also do crypto. I started in 2018 with very small money, also having a miner with friends, and then in 2020, a little bit too late for my taste. As I consider myself early adopter. Then I started again buying Bitcoin and Link, and also then swapped it for Ethereum and smaller coins. And I'm still building the crypto portfolio. I'm not totally into ETFs. I have some, but right now it works pretty good with the stocks. So I like doing it. I like researching the stocks, and it's not so much work anymore, because I don't have to know every stock in the world, and that's why I have my routines.
Yeah, because in the documentary they say that you spend 4 to 5 hours a week working on your investments. So what do you do exactly? So you research stocks or opportunities, or?
They said also that I work 12 hours. I don't. So that's by the definition of work, but I don't work 12 hours, because I also need to bring the kids into bed and so on. But I work in also my second shift as a dad. I also need to clean the dishes and so on. I just research. Then when the kids are in bed, I research some stocks I like, because I have read about some innovation on TechCrunch, or I read some of these stock newsletters. And then I just research them, and if I like the company and the technical, and I think from technical analysts, they will also kind of start growing, then I kind of buy it. But it also, do you need a lot of patience for investing. Sometimes you have to wait kind of a year until the stock moves. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Maybe I can differentiate a bit with the stocks. So I have a portfolio with large stocks that kind of always grow. So there are typical stocks that always grow, are Adobe and AMD, Mercado Libre, Microsoft, Apple, and so on. So these bigger ones, I have one with that, so quite boring, but profitable. And I have then a portfolio. So that was a kind of a trend following strategy. And then I have also some where I discovered that it was more or less value strategy a few years ago, but now it's kind of buying smaller small cap growth stocks or momentum stocks when they are kind of affordable. So I'm DCAing into them, so dollar cost averaging into the stocks and try to get them cheap. And then I hope I don't have to sell it anymore because they're growing and growing and growing. So like if you buy Netflix at 2012, if you would have put 5,000 into Netflix 2012, then you have now, I think, 400 or 500.
Nice.
I try that. I bought, for example, Peloton, just to have an example, Peloton in 2020 in the Corona crisis because I thought nobody can go to the gym anymore. So they maybe spent far too much on this bike. Or BioNTech, or what else? I don't know. I forgot. I have to look at it. Yeah, so that's and this, a third strategy is to buy stocks that are kind of that are not that expensive, but where there is a fantasy or also boring, kind of boring, but where there is a fantasy that they can accelerate their growth because there's a new product or the market conditions, and you kind of as an investor have to kind of see that before the analysts and the rest of the market sees it. And I just have some forums where I can talk to other people who have different or same ideas, and that's it basically.
Okay, and now, I understand that you're a long-term investor. You took some great opportunities. So, where are you on that journey? Because are you far from your target, which will allow you to be financially independent, or is it still a work of a certain number of years, or where are you?
I think it's a documentary. I said 5 to 10 years, and that's also kind of true. But it can also be earlier if I would kind of work in a coffee shop for 2 days or 3. Or my wife is still working. So it's, I think for really to be very comfortable FI, I would need kind of 2 to 2.5 million. I have calculated. That was a bit frightening, that it's so much. But in the end, it's not that much. If you have 1 million, you just need to double. It's not that much anymore. If you have 3,000, doubling it is just 6,000. So it's not that much. So that's kind of the idea, and I would like to go part-time then also in the near future, and maybe not being so fast with my FI journey, just having a bit more time to do things I like drinking coffee and reading a book, and bring my son to his spare time activities, and podcasting also.
Yes, and it's cool. And one question I have about those 2.5 million, you don't need to answer specifically, but in the FI community, and we've had some guests on the podcast, and they say to be financially independent, you need 25 times your yearly expenses. Yeah. So if I look at 2.5 million, your yearly expenses are then 100,000 euros.
The 25, I'm not calculating within 25 because I read in the Vanguard report that somebody of the community called Tim recommended to me. I calculate, I think, was 40. So I calculated 50,000. First, I calculated 50,000 multiplied with, let me look, with 40. And then I came to this 2 million.
Okay, 2 million.
And I think it's very hard. So that's my personal. You are not allowed to say that very loud in the community. It's pretty hard in Europe to go FI just using ETFs and get a 7%. As if you calculate that, it can be quite depressing. You have to eat a lot of oats and with water until you get to a point where you can live off that, of your ETF money. So that's why you need, I think, also having some opportunity in crypto when it's there. I also have a couple of derivatives just to speed up it a bit. And if you have some of these interest calculators, then if you just have instead of 7, 8, or instead of 8, you have maybe 10%, it really makes a dramatic difference in when you can retire. So I personally think it's okay to to try to get 2% more, because you can save a couple of years. And that's why I also have some more risky things in the mix. It's pretty depressing, but you can also, for example, my wife maybe wants to work longer because she likes her job, or I can go part-time. That would be some of the ideas I have, not to wait until I have like a 2.5 million and so on.
Yeah, it seems, even though it's reachable, let's say you have 1 million, as you say, you only have to double, but still it's a long road. Yeah, definitely. But one thing I don't understand, just to be clear, because in the US they say 7-8% if you invest every month, and then you will get there. But in Europe, I mean, if I invest myself in a US fund, I mean, I will get the same return. No, don't you think, Mathias?
I don't know about this US, because in the US they have these IRR and Roths, and they have a way where they can save on tax.
Yeah.
They put their money into this and they can save on tax. In Germany, we don't have that because they just forgot to update the pension scheme. In the UK, I think it's also possible to save tax-free for the retirement. That's why I don't think it's...
Yeah, it depends a bit, because in Belgium, for example, there's no capital capital gain taxes.
Wow. But you have to pay, you have to tax it with your income tax? Or is there no tax on your profits?
On your profits, there's no capital gains tax.
But what's the catch? It's a European country. They don't... Why should they allow you not to tax your profits?
I don't know. I mean, you need to keep the investments for 6 months at least. Mm-hmm. And in Belgium, I think there's no capital gain tax if you handle it not as a trader. So if you hold, it's okay. In Luxembourg, where I live, you need to keep it for 6 months, and then it's tax free. So you buy a stock today, it's 10x's in 20 years. In 20 years, you sell it for a profit. You don't need to pay tax on it. So that's great.
That's pretty good. And that I also have a spreadsheet where I calculated the returns of stocks and derivatives against it from crypto, because in crypto in Germany, you can, after 1 year, if you hold 1 year, you don't have to tax it, the profits. But for for equities like stocks and derivatives, you have to pay tax all the time you sell it. I think in gold, you also need to hold 1 year. And for real estate, it's 10 years. That's a pity. And it really makes a difference if you, for example, if you're a trader and you pay on the capital 25 or 26% every year, it really makes a difference if you do that every year.
Yeah, I mean, there's different rules. And I know in Belgium, the dividends, on the other hand, they're almost reduced by half due to double taxation. So there's a lot of things to figure out, at least in Europe, on the taxation, which will make an ETF strategy valid or not. But I like the approach of, still trying to push a little bit here and there with stocks or even crypto. If you're comfortable with that, I think that's good, because it makes it more achievable and faster. I mean, without...
I think ETFs are not that bad if you have these, if they don't pay you out every now and then. If they just accumulate, then you are just taxed at the end if you really sell a share. And but you also, if you hold, for example, an ETF in Germany, they also tax you like a 1% every year. Also, you just hold it without having you selling it.
Okay.
It's difficult. It's very difficult.
Okay. So Mathias, just to summarize a bit, if I was a listener interested into reaching financial independence, I mean, we covered a lot of ground today, but what would be, the gold key tips to get started?
Of course, your website and your podcast. I think one key, if you're a woman, I think it makes sense to read one of these woman finance books because they're really motivating you and so on. So that would be just for women. And then there is, I think, motivating was for me also Richard Pudet, as everybody says. I don't think necessarily that it's a good financial advice book, but it's just opening a bit the eyes and motivating to read other books. So I think reading a good book for investing, for example, I read that was very entertaining or also easy to consume, is Low Risk, High Returns. So they're exactly telling you how to filter out stocks that don't wake you up at night. And they still have a good return. It's a Dutch author. Then I also would recommend reading one of the financial independence books, like Work Optional, or that's an American book. I think there's also a German book from I forgot the name, Gisela Enders, Finanzielle Freiheit, it's called, also Financial Independence in German. She also, I think, translated it to French. That would be some of the books. And I would also recommend not to watch too much of these blogs and YouTube channels, and so where they have so small bits of information. Mm-hmm. So I would just go for a book. So in Germany, there's also a very good book about ETFs. I think is Souverän investieren. It's from a Deutsche Bank guy who lived and worked in London, who has a good approach about how you can develop your ETF portfolio. But there are also in other countries, I think it's well covered how you do that. But yeah, I read this book. I think that's all.
Okay. No, very good. So yeah, so your advice is to start to get inspired by reading books, and then, okay, you'll figure out from there, and then you will see. Okay, no, very good. So Mathias, there's still a lot of questions I have in my head about your documentary, but I think we'll stop here. Maybe I'll invite you a second time, and then maybe by then you will have read this book. So Mathias, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to speak to you. But before I let you go, we always have our 3 quick-fire questions. So are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, very good. So we talked about your investments, but what has been your best investment so far, Mathias?
And when it was one of the really good investments, but it was luck, was investing into a broken American airline. I think it was end of the 10 years or 2009, 8, 7, I don't know, maybe American airline, and I bought it for 23 cents.
Yeah.
And it went up to, I think, 2 euros or dollars. So it was quite fun. And all the time I thought I cannot sell it anymore because they have been removed from the stock exchange. And then I found out after a couple of years that I just need to call my bank. They can sell it for me, but I cannot sell it on the website. I had to call them. Okay. And that's why I hold it also a little bit longer. And that's why I think it made me kind of 9,500 before tax.
Oh,
and the
nice.
best, that was the best investment. I think I had also the crowd investing. I had also an exit where I cannot say how much it was, but it was a 5-digit. Mm-hmm. But the problem was in the same year, I had also a 5-digit or a loss. That was also kind of 5 digits. So I made only a smaller profit, below 10K. So it's that's it. And I think the biggest mistake was to sell Tesla for just 3x after 300%. That was really stupid.
Yeah, but you never know these things, huh? Yeah.
That's the thing.
Okay, very good. And question number 2: you already mentioned a number of books, but what is one book you can recommend to anyone? But it does not need to be a financial book.
I wanted to recommend this book, Low Risk, High Return.
Mm-hmm, sure.
But I can also recommend, if you really want to go nuts with investing and really try the risky road, I think Jess Dean. He has written a book called Super Stocks.
Okay.
And that's a different. It's more risky approach than the low risk high return. But it's very interesting also how he sees the markets. And so the first part of the book is more just talking about his history and how he learned it and so on. And in the end, he has also some tips how to filter out stocks that, more than 10x and so on. It's quite entertaining to read, but I don't apply this strategy until now, I would say.
Okay, no, very good. And then the last question is, what is the best purchase for under 100 euros?
I think the best purchase was, there are a lot of good purchases. Sometimes it could just have been a drink for a woman.
Yeah, why not? I don't know if that's how you met your wife, but why not?
No, I think she paid herself. I think the meetup fees. I had a meetup, founded the meetup in 2015 about fintech and also about for playing cash flow games and financial independence meetups. I think that it was just 25 euros per half a year, but it's kind of worth it because you can, you meet new people and you pay a bit into the community, pay for the community, but in the end you can also meet cool people that have the same interest. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, cool advice. So Mathias, of course, we said that you are the host of the Financial Independence Europe podcast. So where else can the listeners find you?
So the website for the podcast is financial-independence.eu. Yeah, where else can you find me? On Instagram, it's FI Europe, and on Twitter, also FI Europe. I also have a personal account, Suburbs of Cinema, if you want to see how I drink a coffee, pictures of coffees.
Oh, okay.
So not interesting for everybody. Or from the vacation. But then I have for the fintech meetup, you can Google fintech meetup cologne.de if you like to. It's online, so it's also European fintechs if you like to learn more about that. And also for German meetups in Berlin and Cologne, they are called Retire to Freedom meetup Berlin, for example. That has been in the documentary. Mm-hmm. And I think that's it.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. And I'll link anyway the documentaries in French and in German, so then people can learn more about it and see it for themselves. So that's very good. So Mathias, thank you very much. It was really a pleasure to have you on.
Cool. And next time we talk about how I have to sell all my T-shirts.
Yeah.
Out of the flat. Okay. Thank you very much, and have a nice evening.
I hope that you enjoyed this episode and that you learned something from it. And if you found it useful, please make sure you share it with a friend, or you can also rate the show in your favorite podcast app. This will help the show to grow. So if you do so, thank you very much. And now let's go through the key takeaways for today. Number 1, financial independence according to Mathias. It will be different for you. Working is also living. The dependence on income or money can be a problem. If you're fired, for example, you have no more income. The goal is to unbundle income and job. For Mathias, it's important to work on what you want and get more ownership of the work. He does not necessarily focus on early retirement. It's about being financially secure, and it's about being able to take a break and or be prepared in case of medical expenses, etc. In short, it's about creating options for yourself. Number 2, how to reach financial independence, or FI. The recipe is simple. Reduce your expenses, increase your income, increase your savings rate, and then invest the rest. Tweak it in a way that fits your life situations, personal preference, and values. Number 3, on daily expenses, optimize your groceries, rent, and mobility costs. Maybe you can do car sharing, bike rentals. Do it on a case by case and see what's best for you. Monitor the cost, but do not overthink the process. It can take precious headspace. I really like that advice from Mathias. Number 4, on investing. There is no one way to reach financial independence. Investing in ETF and chill is not the only way. Depending on where you live in Europe, it can be harder or easier to reach financial independence due to taxation. So make sure you do your own research and see what works best in your country. And as well, to help you accelerate that path to financial independence, you can also look at opportunities in the stock markets, individual stocks, And why not add a little bit of crypto? But yeah, be careful here, do your own research. It's a very specific market. And last but not least, how should you get started on all this? Well, Mathias recommends to read books on personal finance, not to necessarily go straight to YouTube. And I liked his second tip as well, although I was surprised to hear it from a man. But if you're a woman listening to this episode, well, read a book written by a female author. I think it will make more sense to you and it might motivate you more to get started. A few suggestions, you can look at Jen Sincero, You're a Badass at Making Money, and for example, the book he mentioned himself from Tanya Hester, Work Optional. So that was it for today. Thank you so much for listening. It really means a lot to me. Make sure you subscribe in Apple Podcast. And of course, please do not hesitate to contact me. If you have any questions or feedback, send me an email, john@johnnytalks.com, or connect through social media at Johnny Talks on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And amigos, once more, thanks so much for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.